Hey, it is Uncle Mad back with the first one of these that we've done in a while. I plan on doing a lot more of these type of episodes, but got sidetracked with work and other stuff. And just, I was going to do playoff previews, talk about the Titans' postseason chances. But before we even got a chance to do that, the Titans went and got themselves eliminated from the playoffs. So that was just absolutely phenomenal. What a great job the Tennessee Titans did this offseason. Or season, right into the offseason, guy. So here's what I want to do today. What went wrong, with the Titans? How did they lose that game against the Bengals last week? What can we look to build on moving into the offseason? How do we move forward? And, where do we go from here? That's just kind of where I'm looking at. I've made peace with it at this point in time. I know a lot of Titans fans, just my Twitter, haven't got over the loss yet. Seen a lot of comments of people saying stuff like, I'm not going to be able to watch football for the rest of the season. And I understand those feelings. I understand those attitudes, but I'm telling you, if you have been one of those people who's checked out on football because of what happened to the Titans, you missed a heck of a game last week between the Steelers and the Chiefs. And I have a feeling you're going to be missing some good games today. I will say, for me, just in addition to the Steelers Chiefs game being a fun game to watch last week, oh, my camera's off. In addition to that being just a fun game to watch last week, it gave me a little bit more closure on the Titans season just because after that game, I was like, even though we beat both the Bills and the Chiefs during the regular season, the form they're in, the rhythm they're in, the way they've got their offenses going right now, we wouldn't have stood a chance if we made it to this weekend against either one of those teams. They would have throttled us because I feel like we hit our ceiling. That's what we need to talk about today. How do we hit that ceiling? Why did we hit that ceiling? What went wrong? I have a couple of different opinions, and I don't think there's any one person necessarily to blame. I think a lot of things came together to expose some gaps in what we thought was a Super Bowl caliber team. I know Ryan Tannehill is taking a lot of heat. I don't think he's all to blame. Certainly, he's somewhat to blame because you can't throw 3 interceptions in a game and not take some of the blame. Todd Downing obviously is under fire right now. I think rightfully so. In my opinion, I think a little more so. Got to put the blame on him than Tannehill. I actually did like a 20-minute rant that was on my game day vlog, and I had to edit it down because it was going to like triple the length of the game day vlog about all this stuff. So I'm going to try to not do that again. I'm going to try to keep my thoughts condensed, on point. So let's start. There's 3 things that went wrong for the Titans. I'm going to go through the 3. Number 1, this is the most important one, more so than Downing, more so than Ryan Tannehill. But I haven't heard this on any national podcasts. I haven't heard this on any, I haven't heard it on any local podcast either, but you had to be in the stadium to see this. This was the ultimate thing that cost us the game against the Bengals. So throw out the first 2 interceptions. They happened. Who's to blame? Who's not to blame? Doesn't matter. We were still set up. We got the ball back with like a little bit over a minute to go, some timeouts still on the board. Everything you could possibly want to go out and be able to drive down, give Fat Randy the chance to kick a revenge field goal to knock the Bengals out of the playoffs. Everything was set up on a tee for us. Then, right before we're set to come out of the field for what would be hopefully the game-winning drive, the genius running the scoreboard at Nissan Stadium puts up a hype video all about how Ryan Tannehill has completed the most game-winning drives in the NFL since becoming the Titans' starting quarterback. How stupid do you have to be to run that video in that situation? You got Ryan Tannehill sitting on the bench. He's probably geared in, going over what they're going to do on the drive, but there's no way he doesn't at least have some spatial awareness about what that video was, about what that is. To me, it's like I said this in the game day vlog. Go back and watch that on my YouTube channel. That's like telling a pitcher, hey, it's the 9th inning and you got a perfect game going. Go out there and strike the side out. It couldn't have helped the mojo. If Ryan Tannehill was even like lightly aware that the video came out, it had to like have trickled into his brain of, hey, you've been nothing but promise today. I'll be right back. Dog needs to go outside. You're going to stay outside. You're never coming back. Okay, so even if he was only somewhat aware that the video was going on, that had to creep into his mind, that had to come into his head. Oh, the pressure's on. I'm the last minute drive guy. I've done all these last minute drives. I got to go do it again. So he's got a 3rd and 5, tough spot. He's in his head. Ryan Tannehill's thinking, I'm the guy who completes all these game winning drives, tries to force a pass in, tipped up, interception. All to blame on the person who ran that hype video on the scoreboard. Nissan Stadium scoreboard operator, whoever's in charge of the videos putting them up, should be fired. I think it could be the new PA guy because he's sucked at everything he's done all season long, and he's kind of the game day atmosphere voice guy. So there's a chance he said, "Hey, run that Ryan Tannehill hype video, and then I'll tell the crowd to be quiet because we're on offense." I'm blaming him. I'm blaming the scoreboard operator. They are the number one culprits that cost the Tennessee Titans the game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Number two, and then I'm going to say this number two in order of who I blame the most. I got to say it's Todd Downing. The more I've seen accounts like TikTok Titans, accounts like No Flag Films breaking down the actual game footage, and even going back and breaking down past games footage and how that compared to the Bengals game, the more it just is clear that Todd Downing's offense is not sophisticated or advanced enough to trouble average and above NFL defenses. The most alarming thing I saw was that first play, interception right out of the gates. We'd run that play 3 times, almost the exact same play 3 times. I think the only variation on the play in the Bengals game was we didn't have any motion before the snap, but we've run the exact same play 3 times. One time, nobody was open. Ryan Tannehill took a sack. One time, nobody was open, and he basically just had to kind of chuck it away for an incomplete pass. Third time against the Bengals, throws an interception. And all 3 times, it wasn't even close to working. So why you keep that in your playbook, why you keep doing that, why that's your big, let's start the game off on a hot note play, it's unbelievable. Now, even before this game, I had started to notice something the last couple of weeks that was alarming me that I thought was a little bit troubling. If you watch our offense, our wide receivers just never seem to be open. Like, even when they catch the ball, there's already a defender right on the shoulder making a play, tackling them, bringing them down. Or if they make a catch, it's like a contested catch. They're just never wide open catching the ball in space and running. Saw that all day long from the Bengals. Higgins, all day long catching the ball in space. Jamar Chase, even 3 yards was enough space for him to turn it into a 95-yard pass. But our guys all, I feel like it's been going on all season, but I really started noticing it in the last like 5 or 6 games. They're just never open. And when your receivers are AJ Brown, one of the best young receivers in the league, Julio Jones, an all-time great, even Nick Westbrook-Akine, you think he would have space just because those other two guys would be occupying so much of the defense's attention, but none of them. They're never ever open. And to me, it started to think like this has to be something in the scheme. There has to be something we're doing in our offense that isn't getting these guys open. And you see like a lot of the bunch routes and stuff where like receivers are clustering and they're kind of doing like legal but kind of under the radar screens to kind of clear some space, or two receivers will go one way and then one will go the other to confuse the defense. And this is the game where it finally became clear the reason our receivers are never open is because we're not doing the type of routes that clear out space and create space for the receivers. Soccer analogy, great analogy. I, coach soccer, watch soccer, been a part of soccer my whole life. When you're on defense, you want to condense the field. You want to tighten things up. When you're on offense, you want to spread it out because the more spread out you are, the more open you make the game, the harder it is for defenders to defend you. If you've got 3, 4 attacking players on a soccer field, like all within 5 yards of each other, that's super easy to defend because they're really close together. If one passes the other one, you just take a step to the right and you're still right there. That's what our receivers look like on several times. There was one play in particular where it stood out like a sore thumb. Tannehill got the ball. Some pressure came. He rolled, I want to say it was to his right. And, you see plays like from Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, where they roll out and they start pointing, they start telling the receivers where to go, where to kind of jump their routes, where to go to get open, and then make a crazy throw. Tannehill rolled to the right, and there was nothing he could do over there because all the receivers were on the left side of the play. All the receivers were like within 6 yards of each other on the left side of the field, and Ryan Tannehill had rolled to the right, which you can say maybe that was a dumb thing on his part, but they had 6 DBs covering 3 receivers all in the same tiny quadrant of the field. And to me, that's a flaw in the play design. Like, how do you not, if you want to get somebody open or create space, have one receiver run the route that drags the defense away from the other receiver, something like that. We didn't seem to do any of that. It seemed like it was just weird seeing like a cluster of receivers constantly together. And that was exactly what we had on the last play of the game, the final interception. Ferkser was kind of trickling out underneath, but I mean, Ferkser sucked all season long. There's no reason they would ever trust Ferkser to throw the ball to him at this point in the season. But all three of the other receivers ran 15-yard routes that were too long and not necessarily go that long, and they all ran into the same space. So everybody said it was a bad play by Tannehill that he threw it into triple coverage on Westbrook-Ikhine. I don't really think it was triple coverage on Westbrook-Ikhine. I just think all the routes were so close together that when Tannehill threw it, he threw it probably a little too late. The DBs were able to easily condense down on Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, and it looked like there was a lot more coverage on him than there actually was. Because, I mean, think about it. Why, in the biggest play of the game, would the Bengals triple cover Nick Westbrook-Ikhine? They wouldn't. But all the routes ran to the same general area, so those three DBs were just able to very quickly close down on the receiver that Tannehill pretty much stared down and telegraphed that he was going to go with the ball to once he finally threw it out. So all that to say, I mean, that's play calling, that's play design, and that's been going on all season long. I mean, it's one of those things where we've gotten through a couple of the games and people said, yeah, Downing was a little shaky in that game, but he figured a couple things out. I mean, it seems like that's been a recurring thing even through the good games we've had this season. Is post game there was a thought of, well, Downing was a little shaky. He didn't necessarily call things that he maybe should have. He put us into some bad spots. And that finally caught up to us in that game, just like Tannehill having a bad Tannehill day caught up to us. So that's part three. Obviously, it's Tannehill. You can't throw 3 interceptions in a playoff game. You just can't. I think they were a lot caused by the scheme, a lot caused by the plays we were running. But at the same time, if you're a good top-level quarterback, you should be able to read the play and see that there's a flaw there, not force the throw in, not try to. I don't know if he's like playing hero ball sometimes and he just feels like he has to make a play. And so he throws these balls in these tight windows where he shouldn't, and they get tipped up and get intercepted, or if he's just so locked into executing the play as it was designed by Todd Downing that he just can't have any variation in his brain when he sees something happening. Like he even said, and I think the Bengals defense even said that they picked up on this, that his read on the nickel blitz, this is the second interception, was to throw a hot route quick into the flat to the receiver on a bubble screen. And so the DB, he almost got one earlier, but he barely missed it on the tip. So he knew exactly what Tannehill was going to be doing when he showed blitz. So rather than run through with the blitz, he played the pass that he knew was coming. He even said on the sideline he knew it was coming and he was going to get it on the next one. So Tannehill's got to be able to read that and see and make an adjustment on the fly faster, which he didn't. But having his read be so obvious and so blatantly known that the Bengals knew what was coming, that's, once again, we're going back to Todd Downing. That's a schematic issue if the defense is just that on top of what you're doing, is knowing exactly what you're going to do every step of the way. There's nobody else to blame in that situation but Todd Downing. But once again, a good quarterback, an elite quarterback, would see that. And even though that's supposed to be their read, even though that's supposed to be their primary option, light bulb has to go off. Hey, that guy's pulling off in the blitz. He almost got the last one. I shouldn't throw that there this time. And that's another one you can talk about. Why aren't we working on stuff like that to get the ball into our better players' hands? Why is that a bubble screen to Chester Rogers and not a bubble screen to A.J. Brown? I mean, there just seemed to be no creativity in the way Todd Downing tried to find our best players. You look at what Deebo Samuel's doing at San Francisco. How are we not? I mean, it may not be an apples to apples comparison of skill sets, but I mean, San Francisco basically knows he's their most talented player, and they found every possible way they can to get the ball into his hands. And we don't do that with a guy like A.J. Brown, and we should be doing that. I feel like I was trying to move on from Todd Downing, but everything I'm saying is bringing me back to Todd Downing. Because I should tell you that Todd Downing is pretty severely a problem, in my opinion. But the problem is I don't think Tannehill has the ability to read things on the fly and make adjustments. He's going to make the reads he's been coached to read, do the throws he's been coached to do, and he's almost kind of robotic in that way. He doesn't have the flair, the creativity, the ability to quickly adjust on the fly that you see in the elite quarterbacks. Like, I mean, that was the key thing. Like the craziest play from that Chiefs game was the last play, 13 seconds left, second to last play, the one that got him in field goal range, the Patrick Mahomes throw to Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce just said, hey, they're, shading the coverage this way. I'm going to go up the seam instead of where I would usually go. Patrick Mahomes like, yeah, do it. They just on the fly both figured something out, made it happen. I don't think Tannehill has the wherewithal to do that type of play. He's going to do exactly what his robotic, going through the motions, what he's been coached to do, throws are going to be. And that's not the worst thing in the world. If you got a player who can do what he's coached to do, You can work with that, but the coach has to be coaching him to do better things. Yeah, once again, going back to Downing. One thing that I pointed this out to my cousin a few games back that's really annoying that Tannehill just has never seemed to be able to do is he doesn't know how to just get out of a play. He's going to do whatever he's decided he's going to do almost before the ball snapped. Like, how many times have you seen players like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes? Just if there's a screenplay and the defense has clearly got it sniffed out and they've blown it up in the backfield, they just throw it at the running back's feet or the tight end's feet or the wide receiver's feet. Just get out of that play, live to fight another day. Tannehill never does that. He can, the play's blown up. If it's clearly blown up, they got six guys on top of the running back blowing up the screen. He'll still throw it in there and try to make a complete pass to the running back. And it'll either be something that could be picked off or the six guys tackle the running back for like a 7-yard loss. That's just basic quarterback awareness to say, this play's not working, throw it in the ground, live to fight another day. I can only think of one time. I'm sure there has to be more, but I can only think of one time he actually threw the ball away this season when a play wasn't there. And that was the last play of the first half of the Texans game, which we lost, which he got called for intentional grounding. Once again, bad awareness on his part to not be 100% sure that he's outside the tackle box before the one time he ever throws the ball away. And he also tends to linger in the pocket a little bit too much, takes too many sacks that I don't necessarily think should be blamed on the offensive line sometimes, which has led to some fumbles because he's just doesn't seem to have that clock or that awareness that eventually somebody's going to be coming and trying to hit him and take him down for a sack in the backfield, which is kind of troubling because he's got decent mobility. So you think he would be somebody who could pull the ball down a little quicker, scramble, create a little more time. He does that sometimes, but like more often than not, he feels like he's just hanging on in the pocket too long, taking hits he doesn't need to take, fumbling sometimes, and just generally causing us problems. 3 interceptions, a better quarter. I think all 3 interceptions you can kind of chalk up to bad coaching, bad scheme, but a better quarterback would see the issues in the play, would see that it was a bad throw, would see that even though he's doing what the play is designed for him to do, it's not the right thing to do. And so Tannehill to me does not have the awareness, the recognition to make those adjustments on the fly in a game, which to me, that's not the end of the world. You can live with that. I mean, I guess this is where we would transition into how do we fix this? What went wrong? What can we do because a lot of people were just doom and gloom, gave up. That's it. The Super Bowl window's closed. We're never going to win a Super Bowl with Ryan Tannehill. We can't do it. And granted, with the way the things are, that's true. I mean, I believe if next year we're running out Todd Downing as the offensive coordinator, Tannehill as the quarterback, as things were this season with no changes, no adjustments, we're not going anywhere. We'll have a decent regular season, win the division. Hopefully, again, if we're lucky, the Colts are certainly going to be going all out to try to get back in contention. They're not going to sit on their hands. So they're going to be coming back even hotter than they were before. I mean, just today, the news broke that they're looking to potentially bring in Jim Schwartz as their defensive coordinator, which, there's a lot of people who speculate that one of the big reasons our defense turned around, one of the reasons Shane Bowen had such a better season as a defensive coordinator, because he kind of had a little help from Jim Schwartz this season. And we don't really know what the extent of Jim Schwartz's role is, but I mean, a lot of people just put 2 and 2 together and got 4 and said, well, Jim Schwartz wasn't here last year and the defense was terrible, and Shane Bowen didn't seem to know what he's doing. Jim Schwartz comes in, the defense improves dramatically. So certainly hate to see him go to a division rival. Would hope that what Shane Bowen, whatever he did learn from this season, will stick and he'll just be able to continue to roll forward. Who's to say? But I mean, when we look at our offense and needing to fix our offense going into next season, we should look at our defense and what happened. It's doable. I mean, we had a historically bad defense last season, made a few adjustments in the coaching staff, changed over some personnel, made some major personnel changes to the defense players on the field, which I kind of always thought was the bigger problem than Shane Bowen, was that the players on the field actually sucked. Tighten up, Ohio, saying watching the pre-show of the AFC Championship game is killing me. Laugh out loud. I believe we have 2 more years Super Bowl before the drastic changes. I agree. Like that's what I'm trying to get to. I don't think we need to drastically overhaul anything. I think there's a few key things we can do and change it. I mean, the big drastic thing was, if it was me, I would fire Todd Downing. I would get a new offensive coordinator in there. I know Kelly, the former offensive coordinator of the Texans, is somebody that a lot of people in Titan circles would like to see come in some form or fashion. Knowing Vrabel's history, I don't know that he would fire Downing. He stuck with Bowen last year. It's a little bit different circumstance just because Downing now has 1 year as an offense coordinator in Oakland, 1 year as an offense coordinator here, and has been kind of a disaster both times. So there's a little bit more of a proven track record of failure on his part than there was on Bowen's part. But I would still put the odds in favor that he's not going to fire him. He's going to stick with him. So what I would hope would happen would be much like bringing in Jim Schwartz to kind of help Bowen. We bring in some new people on the offensive side of the ball, coaching wise, that can kind of help Downing, kind of give him a little nudge in the right direction. Say, hey, don't have all three wide receivers run the same route to the exact same spot. Get a little more creative with your route trees, things like that. And maybe that's something Kelly, the guy who used to be the offensive coordinator from the Texans, a lot of people, maybe he'd come in, maybe give him a title like passing game coordinator, assistant head coach, something like that. Similar to Schwartz, just kind of give him a role to come in and help. Even something crazy like, I don't know, Matt Nagy at one point in time, people thought he was an offensive genius. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he got found out. Maybe he just had Mitch Trubisky for 4 years in Chicago and he actually would know what he's doing with a quarterback who's a little bit more competent. I don't know. That's a guy who I would kick the tires on to see, hey, you want to come in, just kind of be a little help. He can't make things worse. That's the good thing about it. Matt Nagy couldn't possibly come in and make top. I feel like I'm an idiot saying Matt Nagy. That one feels stupid. But I don't know. Something along those lines. Something like Kelly from Houston. I don't know. It feels like Matt Nagy's the only one that's coming to my head, but there's got to be some offensive people out there. Maybe steal somebody, one of the lower level coaches off of McVay or Shanahan team. Because, those guys have done what we need to be able to do. Look at what Shanahan's doing with Jimmy Garoppolo right now. Jimmy Garoppolo is not even close to as good of a quarterback as Tannehill. So if somebody with the offensive brain power of Shanahan can get what he's getting out of Garoppolo, if we could get somebody from his coaching tree, one of maybe his quarterback coach, his receivers coach, somebody from that staff just to come in and kind of tell Todd Downing, hey, these are the things we did to hide Jimmy Garoppolo's weaknesses. These are some things we could do to help out Ryan Tannehill. That just in itself would drastically improve our offense. If we just go into the same mode next season with Todd Downing just running the show on his own, we're going to be in trouble no matter what happens. So that's one thing I would look to do. If we're not going to fire Todd Downing, find a way to get some other idea people in there like we did with the defense and Jim Schwartz, get somebody in there to help Todd Downing. Get somebody in there who can say to him, hey, this is a stupid idea. Why don't you try this? Maybe not that mean. Maybe be nice about it. Be like, hey, this might work if you try this instead of just running three receivers to the exact same spot. But the bigger thing that I think would help Tannehill out a ton, specifically Tannehill, is we need to get him some type of safety net receiver, some type of emergency valve receiver, because he's never had that in the time we've had him here. I think Adam Humphrey was intended to be that, but then he was just constantly hurt, was never able to get out there. Jonnu Smith was a great tight end, but he wasn't that style of tight end. He was more of a big play tight end. Think back to Frank Wycheck. Frank Wycheck was our leading receiver for the first 20 years of the franchise. And it's not like he was a big play, catching bombs down the field guy. He was just always able to find the empty space in the hole, give McNair an option to dump off a pass, pick up 5 or 6 yards every time he caught the ball. That's the kind of thing we need, whether it's a third wide receiver who can just sit down in the middle of zones and wait for a pass and just pick up 5, 6 yards, whether it's a tight end who can do that. I honestly think we should bring in a tight end who can do that and try to also get a big play tight end, because we basically need an all new set of tight ends. None of our tight ends this year were good enough. So we got to just completely dump all them. I know there's quite a few tight ends who are projected to be in free agency, so that's an option there. But yeah, give him some weapons that aren't necessarily, we don't have to have everything be a big play. He needs an emergency person, like a dump off person, because we don't have that in Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is not a receiving running back. He's popped a few screens here and there, but he's not a guy that, if the initial play breaks down, Tannehill can just dump it down the flats. We need that type of player, whether it's a tight end, a third receiver, just somebody that has that instinctual ability to just find an open space in the zone, sit down 5 to 6 yards downfield and just take the dump off pass if it's there and if we need it. Yeah, it's good. Another good point from Titan, Ohio. Consistency instead of constant changes is a better option. That's what I'm saying. I don't think we'll get rid of Downing, but I think there are things we can do to support him and help him, get him some additional help in the coaching side of things, but I don't think we can just roll him and Tannehill out there together the same way things were this season. Got to get them some help on the field with, some, like I said, tight end, third receiver, somebody who can just be an option on every single play. Doesn't have to be a big play, but somebody that can just be there 3 to 7 yards every play. We haven't had that in forever. we could use something like that. I mean, that's what, Delaney Walker pulled out a few big plays every once in a while, but he was kind of the same thing. He was kind of a guy who just was able to get open, sit in some space, 3 to 7 yards every play. If nothing was open down the field, easy dump off, live to fight another day. That's what we haven't had in quite a while. And I think that would make a big, big improvement in our offense to get something like that. But I mean, one thing, I don't want to ramble too much. I feel like I've already rambled too much. But one thing that we're just going to have to do no matter what, as Titans fans, have to accept. I know it just was everybody was ready to blow up the team. We were trading for Russell Wilson. We're going to trade for Aaron Rodgers, trade up to the first overall pick, get a quarterback. Ryan Tannehill is going to be the quarterback next year. Todd Downing might get fired. I don't think he will. But there's like 0.001% chance that anybody other than Ryan Tannehill is going to be our quarterback next year. The cap implications, there's just no way to get rid of him. There's just no way. I mean, and he's done too much to really, 2 years in a row, he's been kind of crap in the playoffs. There's a lot worse quarterbacks out there than what we've got right now. I think we should be happy with what we have. Understand that there's ways he can get better. Understand that there's things we can do to build up around him to make him better. But even if there wasn't, even if we just had to suck it up and say he's not good enough to win a Super Bowl, he was still going to be our quarterback next year because there's just no way to get rid of him with the cap implications that come from it. To cut him would be an insane amount of dead cap that would just hinder us. So let's say, for example, I'll give you a specific example. If for some reason the Seahawks were willing to take Tannehill and some draft picks as a part of a trade for Russell Wilson, we still would have a huge dead cap hit from Tannehill's money. All that cap money doesn't go to Seattle. A big chunk of it stays on us. And then we would also be taking on whatever Russell Wilson's cap hit is. So then all of a sudden we have basically 2 high-priced quarterback cap hits on our salary cap in a year where we need to think about re-signing Harold Landry, where we need to be prepared to offer new contracts to Simmons, to A.J. Brown. We just couldn't possibly tie up all that cap money in getting rid of Tannehill and risk losing these players that we're going to need for the next, 5, 6, 7 years to really be the core of our team. So that's the biggest thing. I mean, whether or not the team is set would come to the conclusion that they can't win with Tannehill, he's going to be here. There's just the way the cap structure is, there's just basically no way to get rid of him. So the only thing to do is to figure out how to take him from a guy who's kind of crapped to bed 2 straight years in the playoffs, and fix him. Is he ever going to be Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or even Aaron Rodgers? No. But can he be Jimmy Garoppolo? Can he be Matt Stafford? Can he be, that next tier of quarterbacks who can possibly win a Super Bowl? Like, don't forget, we're not that far removed from freaking Nick Foles winning the Super Bowl. It's not impossible. You just got to get the right stuff in place around the quarterback. A lot of people said, well, if everything's perfect, maybe Tannehill. I don't ever even think everything has to be perfect. I think you just have to make a few changes, few adjustments, get him a little bit more help in some areas that he's just never had help, like the help at tight end, the safety valve, receiver, whatever it's going to be, and help Todd Downing make his offense a little bit more exotic, a little bit more complex, a little bit less predictable. And I think suddenly that's going to improve our offense and just Tannehill himself tenfold. I mean, it was just alarming seeing some of the Twitter accounts like No Flags Film posting some of the Downing lowlights of how predictable, how simple our plays are and how easy they are to predict. Seeing the stuff with the Bengals on the sidelines talking about like how they always knew it was coming, how like, he's going to throw that again, I'm going to pick it off next time. That stuff is just unacceptable. So ranted enough about the Titans. I think there's a way forward. I don't think, it sucks. Feel free to be sad right now. That this is always the worst part of the year is the week, 2 weeks after the season ends. But, I'm not going to give up on this team. I'm not going to cancel everything and say we got to get rid of everybody and start over. I think there's some relatively easy things to do, some things we can do. Look at what John Robinson did and Mike Vrabel. Look at what they did to the defense. Our defense last year was 100 times worse than our offense was this year. It's not impossible to fix that offense based on what they did with the defense. I don't know who the equivalent players are, but get the offensive equivalent of a Bud Dupree, a Danico Autry in there. Get a healthy full season out of the offensive line and out of the receivers, and it can be a completely different look team. Just remember that we were all doom and gloom on the defense last year, and John Robinson worked some magic. Vrabel figured some stuff out with Bowen, whether it was bringing in Schwartz, whether it was just fully defaulting more power to Bowen. Because if you forget, like Bowen wasn't really a defensive coordinator next year. It was very confusing about what his exact role was, and something changed. And the defense is now a defense that's like I don't think we had 9 sacks all season last year, and we basically had 11 if you take the 2 that were struck off the board against the Bengals game. I mean, that's insane. That's one thing everybody just raved about the 9 sacks. People forget we actually had 11, but 2 got taken off the board for plays that didn't actually occur because of penalties. And just even still, like that is so many more sacks. Like I don't think we had 11 sacks in the whole of last season. So if you look at what we were able to do to turn the defense around from last year to this year, it's doable. The offense can be fixed. The issues can be addressed. We've still got time. We got a chance. It's not getting any easier. I mean, my biggest takeaway, other than Todd Downing being an idiot from the Bengals game, is that Joe Burrow is the real deal. If they get him some offensive line, if they improve their defense in Cincinnati, the Bengals are going to go from being like one of the biggest jokes of all time to being a team that can regularly contend because Joe Burrow, to me, is the real deal. There's not many quarterbacks like him in the league. For everybody that wants to get rid of Tannehill, there's like 3, 4, 5 guys that are going to be of that level, and you're just not going to get those guys unless you just get lucky like some of these teams have, or if you're just terrible and finally hit on a draft pick. I mean, we could just as easily like blow up the team, have a terrible season, get a high draft pick, and draft another Jake Locker. Because I mean, when I'm looking at this year's draft picks, the quarterbacks in this year's draft, that's what I'm seeing. Like when I look at I can't remember their names. That's how forgettable they are. They look like a bunch of Jake Lockers to me. So I'm not looking at any of these quarterbacks as being the future. 22 years tighten up Ohio. Yep. Been about the same. Been there since season ticket holder since the first season when they were at Vandy, when they were still the Oilers that season. Been a long ride, but I mean, this happens. I mean, we're getting there. I mean, like we've had 4 straight winning seasons, 3 straight playoff appearances, 2 straight division titles. Only one team wins the Super Bowl every year. We're getting better. We're fixing things where they need to be fixed. I'm still thinking we got a good chance next year, because especially if you look at some point in time, the cap's going to catch up to some of these teams that are a little bit ahead of us in their window. The Chiefs, some point in time they're going to have to make some sacrifices on their team of who they keep and stuff like that. The Bucks, it certainly looks like this brief little Bucks resurgence is going to be gone. The Rams, I mean, there's no way the Rams can keep that team together for much longer beyond this season. So I still think we have 2 to 3 years left in this window because John Robinson seems to be one of those GMs who knows how to manipulate the cap, who knows how to make it where the cap barely exists and is barely a function. I don't think we're looking like back in the day when we had to blow up the team because the cap got too crazy with Floyd Reese, the season we had to cut McNair, Smart Roll, Derek Mason, all those guys in the same offseason. I think John Robinson has built our roster in a way where we can keep competitive every single year. I don't think there's ever going to be a year, knock on wood, where we just flat out have to blow it all up and start over, unless it just gets really bad. And then that happens sometimes. But I got faith in the leadership. I mean, which, we didn't have that for a long time. I think people are very quickly forgetting, much like Tighten Up Ohio referred to how bad things were just a few years ago. This has been an incredible run for the Titans. Would it have been awesome if we got a Super Bowl somewhere in these last 3 years? Yeah, obviously. But I mean, from where we were 6 years ago to where we are right now, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. So faith in the team, faith they'll figure things out and get the next steps up. But I don't want to dwell on that anymore. I got to talk about a couple more things. We're about 10 minutes away from the kickoff of both the AFC Championship game and the U.S. Men's National Team's World Cup qualifier against Canada. Man, I got to believe this. I'll go AFC Championship first. I think it's been an incredible run for the Bengals. They've, somewhat improbable. Joe Burrow is coming to life, becoming a superstar in this league right now. But the Chiefs look like they're the Chiefs again. They had their struggles early in the season. The Titans just completely demolished them. But they look like the Chiefs again. I mean, Tyreek Hill's throwing at the peace sign. Kelsey's unguardable. I think they're going to be able to get pressure on Joe Burrow. They're getting Tyrann Mathieu back, which is going to be huge for their secondary. I think they're going to be able to get pressure. I don't know if they'll get 9 sacks like the Titans did, but I think they'll be able to get pressure on Joe Burrow enough to slow down the Bengals offense because as much as the Bengals offense hummed, Jamar Chase ate us up, T. Higgins ate us up, we kept them out of the end zone. And the Raiders did the same thing. So I think you're going to see more of the same. I think they'll move the ball pretty well against the Chiefs, but I think the Chiefs will, you know, keep them to field goals, keep them to touchdowns, and they're not going to be able to do that to Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is going to do Patrick Mahomes things. So I actually bet this right as soon as the line went live last week. I took the Chiefs -7 because it just feels like they're going to win this game by at least 10 points to me. I would have been more comfortable. I would have been comfortable going beyond 7, but I do feel like it's at least a 10-point win for the Chiefs because I feel like Patrick Mahomes isn't going to kill the team like Tannehill did. Andy Reid's not going to kill the team like Todd Downing did. They're going to execute properly. They're going to put points up, and I don't think it's going to be a shootout like the last game. I don't think the Bengals are going to be able to hang and come from behind like they did in the regular season matchup with the Chiefs. I think if I was going to give a score prediction, I would say 35-24 Chiefs. So I've got Chiefs -7 as my bet for that one. The next game, the later game, the NFC game, that one's a lot harder to predict. I mean, you've got two teams very familiar with each other, division opponents, coaches who've worked together, coming up in the league together. They know each other like the back of their hand. Kyle Shanahan has had Sean McVay's number. I think it's something crazy, like 6 straight wins over him, 2 in the regular season this year. But it just feels like to me, the Rams have put so much into this team. Things have seemed to click into place with that final edition of OBJ. Upset alert from Titan, Ohio. Bengals win by a touchdown. That's the thing. I do think there's something really going well with the Bengals now. I can't go against the Chiefs until somebody really proves that the Chiefs are not the Chiefs. But it's one of those weird things where I think the Chiefs are going to win pretty comfortably. But at the same time, I would not be surprised at all if the Bengals pull up the upset because they just, there are kind of shades of the 99 Titans with this Bengals team where they just keep showing up. They've got a little bit of a swagger to them. They just take care of business and they get the job done. But who knows? I'm leaning Rams in the later game. Spread's 3.5. That might be too much for me to go there, but I think the Rams have just put it all in. They don't have a draft pick till like 2045 at this point in time, so they're all in on this. And Sean McVay's back's against the wall. He's finally got the quarterback he wanted. The offense seems to be humming. Nobody seems to be able to stop Cooper Kupp. OBJ looks like the old OBJ. Bengals Rams Super Bowl from Titan, Ohio. That's where I'm leaning. I'm leaning Rams because Jimmy Garoppolo has done everything he could this postseason to get the 49ers eliminated, and they've survived in spite of him. This is the game with Von Miller coming after him, with Floyd coming after him, with Aaron Donald coming after him, with Jalen Ramsey ball hawking out there. I feel like this is the game where Jimmy Garoppolo is the Jimmy Garoppolo that Kyle Shanahan has desperately tried to get rid of. I think Rams win. I don't know if they win big. I would say Rams 24-21. That'd be my prediction there. I don't have a bet on that game yet because I feel the Rams win, but I don't feel strongly about the 3.5. That hook kind of worries me a little bit. If it was 3, I'd probably take it, but the 3.5 worries me a little bit. Tighten Up Ohio asked, don't the 2021 Bengals remind you of the 2019 Titans? I believe so. Yeah, they're very similar to both the 2019 Titans and the 99 Titans where they just keep getting wins. People keep doubting them. They keep getting wins. They've got special players. They've got weapons. They're kind of catching people off guard, and they're just finding ways to win games. That's what, sometimes the playoffs are just about catching fire and finding your momentum at the right time, and that could be them. They could be that team. I mean, like I said, I feel like the Chiefs are a team you can't bet against until somebody beats them, but I could see the Bengals doing it. I mean, they certainly don't doubt themselves. Joe Burrow has a confidence you don't see come along very often, so would not be surprised. It's going to be a fun game. I can't wait to watch it here in like 5 minutes. Yeah. Quick thoughts on the U.S. national team game against Canada. It's kind of a dead rubber. It's in Canada. It's going to be a tough surface, tough weather. They probably need it more than we do. The win we got the other night puts us in a pretty strong position to kind of not need to get anything out of this game, which kind of sucks. It's one of the kind of weird things you get in soccer sometimes where you get to a point where a game doesn't matter as much as you'd like it to. I'd like to just go up there and beat Canada. But I think Greg's going to rotate. I think he's going to play a little bit of a soft. Actually, lineup's probably out by now. So I could be completely wrong. So I'm not going to say what kind of lineup he's going to play because it's probably already out at this point in time and I'm probably wrong. But I would say 2-2 draw would be my prediction for the US-Canada match. I think we'll play enough to get there. Canada's improved dramatically in the last 3 to 4 years, so they're gonna play hard. They're gonna wanna get a win on their home soil. We're probably gonna be in protection mode, trying to just make sure we don't lose the game because, a point would be a huge result for us up there, so that's it. I'm gonna wrap up. Royal Rumble was last night. Not the best Royal Rumble. I was hoping for a lot more because it's the first time they were back in front of a crowd, and that's what makes the Royal Rumble so special is the crowd reactions when the surprise people come out during the Rumble. The women's Rumble was all the surprises that they've had 100 times. The same legends coming back again, and they're just their timing's off because they're just not working. They're not doing the stuff. The women's Rumble was kind of a mess because of that. Men's Rumble had like zero surprises. It was like all mid carders, and you pretty much knew if you could kind of read the tea leaves what was going to happen from the get go that Lesnar was going to show back up and win the Rumble. Spoiler alert if you didn't watch the Royal Rumble yet. And I saw a lot of people who loved the ending to Lashley and Lesnar's match. It was a good ending, and in that it set up some good things for the future with Reigns and Heyman reuniting and Heyman turning on Lesnar. But what I didn't like about it was so they knock out the referee. Reigns comes out, spears Lesnar, hits him with the belt, sets up Lashley to pin and win. It would have been better if the original referee who was knocked out had come to and counted the refall. But instead, a second referee runs out from the back. He literally runs right past Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman and has to just ignore them like he doesn't know why they're out there. Yes. Yeah, I don't watch wrestling regularly except for like SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, and Mania because usually those shows kind of find a way to be good. But last night was not great. But it was just a stupid nitpicky thing. Like if the original referee had counted, like how was the referee in the back? Did he not know everything that Roman Reigns did? And why didn't he just run out and disqualify him? That makes no sense to me. In 2021, where every major sport has replay, how the referee who's in the back is just supposed to run out and act like he doesn't know what happened. That was just stupid to me. I don't know. I'm rambling at this point. Like I said, good hope. I mean, not good hope. I mean, everything could completely go off the rails next year for the Titans. But I laid out some ways I think they can just make a few small changes, a few small adjustments, and the offense could take the same kind of steps forwards that the defense did this year. So, agree, disagree. Who knows? We got a long off season, plenty of time to discuss it. Me and my buddy Kyle will be back on the channel. I'm sure he's already loading up on draft info. He's my draft guru, so I'll get him in for some draft coverage once we get a little bit closer to that. Probably pop back on, do a Super Bowl preview at some point in time, give my thoughts on that. There could be more Titans news coming with possible changes to the coaching staff. Wink, hopefully Todd Downing, but we'll see. Thanks for checking this out. Hope to see you again soon in the future.